Hello folks, Kyle here, Dark 30 Outdoors. Hey, welcome back. Today I'm going to talk again about the C.J. Alexander buck that the young man shot back in November 2023. New information has come out. The young man has 23 charges against him. Those include hunting without permission, hunting without a license, spotlighting or jacklighting, hunting on private land without permission. I mean, the list goes on and on. It even includes tampering with evidence and theft. So those are pretty serious charges, and these came about from a grand jury. This was not, these are no longer just allegations. These are actual charges that have been levied against him. So it is not looking good for C.J. Alexander in regard to the buck that he shot. There's been a lot of speculation. I made a video back in January. A lot of the comments were kind of back and forth. A lot of people believed that his story was legit, and a lot of people didn't. And then there was a lot of people that said, we're just going to wait and see. Today is Sunday, May the 12th. It's Mother's Day, so I hope all of you are wishing your mothers a happy Mother's Day. I believe C.J. Alexander has a court date a week from tomorrow on May the 20th. So he will get his day in court, but it doesn't look good at all. In fact, his friends and girlfriend, there are others that are facing criminal charges as well. So when those sort of things start to happen, people tend to sing like a canary because they're gonna do whatever they can to get themselves out of trouble. So I just wanted to come on and do a quick update video to let folks know that it certainly looks like the C.J. Alexander buck was poached. It's sad because it's a world-class buck. It stands, if it were harvested legally, it would stand as the #1 typical in Ohio, and I believe the #3 typical in all of the world. Now that's based on the green score, but it was scored by Mike Rex, who's an extraordinarily knowledgeable buck scorer, but he's also he's incredibly involved in the Ohio Wildlife Council and in the Ohio Big Buck Association. The man knows how to score a deer, so there's no doubt about it. It's a world-class buck. The rack that it grew, it's incredible, but it does appear as though his story was not legit. If we go back about a week after I posted my video back in January, C.J. Alexander did another interview on a different hunting podcast. And on that podcast, they showed the picture of the plot of land that his half-sister owns or whatever. And so based on that picture and information shared in the podcast and online and other places, I did some digging. I went to the Clinton County Auditor's website and I found that plot of land. It's kind of a long rectangular shaped land. It's got some structures in the front. So really the huntable area is probably more like, I don't know, 4 to 5 acres, 5.5 acres maybe. So if you're in a tree stand, you can see that whole area. There's no mystery. If you shot a deer, you either saw it go down or it disappeared off the property. So that doesn't match at all what he said. The moment I saw that and analyzed that plot of land and what was around it, I knew then in my mind. I no longer was kind of on the fence or uncertain. I was convinced he had poached it. Got into some arguments on social media, other platforms, and I kind of got to the point where I'm like, it's silly to argue with someone who is so confident in their own opinion. That's just silly, and it's kind of a waste of time. But I did find it laughable that individual started a GoFundMe for C.J. Alexander's legal fund. I mean, you know, if that's what you want to do, more power to you. And I'm sure his heart was in the right place. He, based on information available, believed that there was a wrongdoing. You know, so God bless him for wanting to help. But in the case of C.J. Alexander, it looks as though Help was not warranted for that young man. The charges that have been levied against him, it wouldn't be done without evidence. So it looks like there is a monumental case against him. And like I said, if his friends kind of turned, it doesn't look, put it this way. It is looking very convincingly at this point as though he poached that buck. And that's a shame. It's a world-class buck. In fact, speaking of it being a world-class buck, that means he's facing a world-class restitution fine. Ohio has had these restitution fines on our books for multiple decades now. And they base that restitution fine on the size of the rack. And since this is the largest buck that's ever been harvested in Ohio, it's going to be a record for the restitution fine. It's north of $30,000. I know that. So between that and the criminal charges and fines and court costs, I don't know if the young man's going to have to do any time. I have no idea on that. But this is definitely a very egregious and expensive mistake for this young man. I don't know. He might spend the rest of his life paying for this mistake. And that's a little bit of a shame that deer hunting, people are caught up in the pursuit of financial gain and 15 minutes of fame for a buck. Come on, it's a deer. If it grew a great rack, we should admire it and we should respect it. But it's not worth breaking the law, jumping fence lines, or sneaking into a property and then sneaking out after dark. I mean, come on. That's not worth that at all. But he is going to get his day in court. I guess there's a sliver of a chance, but as of right now, it certainly looks like he poached that deer. That's really all I'm going to say about it. Should I find out down the road that I was wrong, I will make an update video where I'm eating crow, but I don't think that's going to be necessary. I think eventually it'll come out, and that'll be that. There's really nothing more to say about it. Okay, there is actually one last thing that I did want to mention, and that is the Ohio DNR for their thorough investigation in this particular case. I recognize, and I think a lot of people recognize, there was a lot of controversy swirling around this particular case, and a big part of that was because it's such a large buck. It's potentially the new #1 typical in Ohio and the new #3 typical in the entire world. I mean, that's a huge deal, and that brought a ton of attention and scrutiny on this. And my hat's off to the Ohio DNR. I have been one of their biggest critics, I promise you. But I think that they did conduct a very thorough investigation in this particular case. It seems as though they've got their ducks in a row. Like I said, they would not have been able to get a grand jury indictment without evidence. So they have evidence to support many of those charges. So like I mentioned before, I think the writing's on the wall, and it's all over but the shouting. We just kind of get to the conclusion. I don't know when that's going to be, but it appears that the Ohio DNR did a really good job with this investigation, and I just wanted to kind of say hats off to them. But I tell you what, as always, thanks for watching.